that we've grown up with. You know, hearing our grandparents, I've heard my parents and my grandparents. Rebati's father, when he reached Faridpur, that is one portion, you know, as I was reading, I had memories of going back to Faridpur when I visited Dhaka for 5 years ago, because Faridpur is where my father's side of the family, they revere Prabhu Jagatbandhu Sundur, and the ashram is still there. So it's a very emotive moment to find that a piece is still living.
It was a dream posting for anyone, you know, who's a student of history. So Italy, in many ways, was not only because of the history, but because it was a wonderful house that we lived in. It was a very old house, which had so many associations, of all of which I write. It was at one time Suraya, the ex-wife of the Shah of Iran, lived there. And then, of course, it was also where Akbar Khalili, the ambassador, had bought that house, and his wife was in the news for all the wrong reasons. Shakira Begum, who was murdered. She was murdered and buried alive. So that was one big story. She never lived there, but her stories all haunted that house in a way. Not haunted in a ghostly sense, but they made something rather exotic about that place. But also because I found myself in Rome, my own Rabindra Sangeet, which all of us, I mean all girls of Kolkata, at age 5 we all learn Rabindra Sangeet. And I've sung along. But it was there that it found expression, because I remember singing at a program. I used to sing at various places, and then somebody from the Vatican approached me saying that your songs are molto spirituale, so we want a recording. And that was my first recording, and in Rome. And it's amazing how things happen when they are meant to happen, because the tabalchi came from Florence, and the sitarist came from somewhere else, and it all gelled. And then Saregama did an Indian version of that. So that happened, and then I learned the language, and I went on many concerts all over the country. And I also realized how important it was to translate Tagore, so that others could understand.
And coming up with Hop, Skip and Jump, and your memoirs about your travels around the world with Himachal, and so many other things that you brought up. So let's have it from Reba Show.
Good evening, everyone. I feel rather overwhelmed to see so many friends and well-wishers. It seems like old times. I would like to thank ICCR for being the venue partner for this event. I would especially like to thank Meenakshi Mishra, the director, for her unstinting support and help, along with her entire office, which has made this evening's program possible. Rita, you asked me why Hop, Skip and Jump. Indeed, why Hop, Skip and Jump? Because all my previous books have been rather serious studies on historical icons that were mentioned. But then I found myself in Greater Noida, and in that guarded complex, as you say, yes, it was time to introspect. And with friends, retired Foreign Service officers and their wives, we all sat together. And this happened, in fact, I begin my book by saying it all happened over lunch one afternoon, when we all said that let's throw diplomacy to the winds. Let's all let our hair down. Let's talk about our stories, because each one has a story to tell. Many career diplomats have written about their career highs and lows, but our voice has not been heard. The woman's voice has not been heard. So I think my book is not a travelogue as such, it's a memoir. It's also a woman's story. And it's a journey, and it's many layered. But I also wanted to read out a little bit that what we all felt on that day when we sat for lunch. All of us agreed that we were a rather peculiar breed, likely to be misunderstood by others, including extended family, which had only seen the glamour that we often enjoyed on postings, but never guessed the heartbreaks and disappointments we battled with. We were mostly from homely middle-class backgrounds, unprepared for the limelight into which we would be thrust, unfamiliar with the style and sophistication of diplomatic life, often painfully gauche in dealing with its niceties, but into which we had to eventually groom ourselves, even the hard way. And yet, there was a sense of pride in being called out to this world stage to represent your country, your culture. For many of us, it was a leap into the unknown. So that's how it happened. And I wrote this book during COVID years, sitting in the basement of my house when all of us were in some sort of a lockdown. And there were all these albums, because in those days you had photographs. And those albums were all there. And since, as I said, I mean, history is my discipline, they were all meticulously maintained year-wise. So I plucked out each album, and with every photograph came a story.